Welcome to another edition of Tell Me How You're Mighty with Tracy, Sean, and Sarah Gorrell. This is where we delve into the world of infidelity. And we've got a specific. Sometimes when I see a case, something that's dominating our headlines in the UK, I think, what would Tracy make of this in her chump lazy lady guise? And I had to ask you, Tracy, about this one because this has been all over our headlines. There are so many twists and turns in this. I've just looked up to see what the latest is, and they are putting on a united front for the sake of the children. This is
Mhm.
Kyle Walker, England footballer, and his wife, who recently discovered that he had had a second child with a woman that he'd had well, a relationship. They were on a break, but they were on a break because there'd been some other sex workers or something involved. A child
Mhm.
was conceived. She forgave him. She took him back. In fact, quite a lot's gone on, and she'd forgiven that. Now he's begging for forgiveness again. He says she was his best friend, soulmate. That came out as well,
Oh
and he's
yeah.
owning his behavior. He recognizes that what he did to his best friend was wrong. You've been looking at this and some of the headlines. What do you make of it?
I have. I think it's a real fuck tangle. That's what I think. And just to kind of do the list of characters because it is confusing. And I have read a bunch of these stories. So the characters are Kyle Walker, who is a football player, soccer to us Americans. Um, so he's a hunky athlete, who probably considers himself godlike. And he's married to his longstanding girlfriend, now wife, Annie Kilner, with whom he has three, almost four children. She's pregnant. I think she's what, 7, 8 months pregnant right now. Um, so the mother of his children. And then there's also the other mother of his children, Lauryn Goodman, who is, did I have that right? Goodwin, who is the mistress. Although I thought this was interesting. So Kyle Goodman says that she's just a one night stand, that oops, each one night stand resulted in a pregnancy. So I love that little bit of information. Um, yeah, to your point about what do I think of it, not that I'm jaded, but you see so many cheater stories that it seems like it's a soap opera and it's incredible and you can't believe it, except stories like this are on the blog and on this podcast, all the time. People really mess their lives up. Um, yeah.
What's quite interesting is that there's been lots of kind of trying to distance himself from the woman that he has two children with, and part of that is, well, it wasn't a proper relationship, and she doesn't know how I take my coffee, so she's got my child, two children, but she wouldn't know how I take my, and that was his indication of what a proper relationship was. And I
Yeah.
sometimes think that makes it even worse when someone
Oh
says,
my.
"Oh, it didn't mean anything. No, 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 no. You're my soulmate. You're the love of my life. It's you, not them." So, you think, well, why would you throw away that for someone that means nothing then? Doesn't that almost make it worse?
Right. Well, okay. We have to zero in on the coffee comment because to me, well, look, it's all the pick me dance, right? It's all, and the way it's an indication of how his brain thinks. He's like, okay, Lauren, you're the fuck buddy, but Annie is the wife appliance. She knows how I like my coffee. And if we're going to measure my commitment, it's like who is his exalted position of wife appliance and who is just an orifice. And you don't know. I mean, it's all about him, right? And serving him coffee. And then there's like, I read some of these stories. There's bickering from the other woman going, "Oh, I do too know how you like your coffee. You like a flat white." And then the sisters coming back and going, "No, he likes Nescafe instant creamer with it." I mean, like, oh my God. Like, why doesn't everybody take a big step back and go, this man is a piece of shit? The only way to serve his coffee is scalding hot, thrown in his face. He's a horrible person. I mean, it's all a big pick me dance. And in that case, Kyle Walker is not unique among cheaters. Yeah. Yeah.
This
Well,
is quite a staggering pick me dance though, because this has been involved quite a lot of people, and it's also, I've noticed that it's been going on across our whole media here. And I've noticed that people, are involved in the pick me dance here. So a lot of the comments on the newspapers are sort of saying whose side they're on, if there is such a thing of as a side. And inevitably, they are on the side of the cheated on wife who has done absolutely nothing wrong but to trust her husband. They got together as teenagers. She supported him through their career. She, quite often these wives that are left are betrayed as, people that have maybe let themselves go a bit.
Oh, she's
They have,
stunning. I've seen the
she's
pictures.
beautiful,
She's absolutely stunning.
beautiful,
Yeah.
supportive, best friend, soulmate. And sometimes people think, oh, it's my fault that they've cheated on me. She couldn't have done anything else, could she? Beautiful children, stunning wife.
No, I don't think, I mean, if people, I mean, and I'm not surprised if people are so monstrous as to blame her. To me, it sounds like she's had moments of lucidity where she's thrown him out, and then, they reconcile. And from what you say, it sounds like they're trying to reconcile again. She's pregnant. I mean, so of course she's very vulnerable. I mean, the thing to me that is shocking about Kyle Walker is he already lost his marriage or his relationship once because of his screwing around. And he's like, "Oh, I'll be a good boy. I'll be a good boy." She takes him back, and he rewards her further investment in him by knocking up the other woman again with a second child. So that's the depth of his sorry. He's so sorry he went and, screwed around again. I'm just, yeah.
It's interesting as well that because there's been a number of people wading in on this, and one of them was his wife's sister who has sort of launched an attack on the mistress and said, stop it, you're causing all this pain, stop it. And which is, fair enough because it's all coming out in the media. She's saying things, but ultimately, I feel so often the blame is deflected from the person that has caused the real pain, and that's the person that's having the affair, the person that's made these choices and brought this situation into their lives. Sort of affair partners don't just sort of happen by accident. It takes a lot of effort to bring another relationship into your life.
Sure. And to have two children with the affair partner, and I'm sure she's not the only one. I mean, there were sex workers or something at his house, and there were 2023. It says he had exposed himself to a woman in Manchester. I mean, so yeah, rodeos not the first time. All the rest, I yeah, it's just a big pick me dance for this guy, which just feeds his ego.
And I think what this highlighted to me, and the reason I thought we should talk about it today, is because the cast of characters aside in this particular saga, it's such a common story. You see it over and over again, and it's very easy when you're embroiled in it to think, oh, it's me. It's, I can save this marriage. If you are standing back from this, if you're looking at it and you're thinking, right, he's done this, 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 and you've forgiven him once, you've taken him back, you've done nothing wrong, and that's when your narrative, the chump lady narrative comes in where you think he's not going to change. That's not going to, will he realistically, is he going to change when he's brought another child into the world after being forgiven once?
I mean, the thing is, I always try to stay away from the can they change or once a cheater, always a cheater, because that's an unwinnable argument. I don't know the future. I don't know if he can change. The real question is to Annie Kilner, is this relationship acceptable to you? Is it okay that your husband is screwing around and has not one, but two love children with his mistress, one of his mistresses? Can you live with that? Can you do the mental gymnastics of that? In terms of what she could do differently to save her marriage or whatever, she's already given him everything a person can give. She's for almost four children with him. She's been with him from the beginning before he was a wealthy, famous footballer. She couldn't be more devoted. So now that he's devalued her, what possibly could she do to be of value to this man? He is who he is, which is just a big monster. I was going to get into that part because I thought this was interesting. This is like a lot of cheaters, is that he keeps going, I own my mistakes. His apology is very lame. I own my mistakes. He goes, no, 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 not mistakes, choices. It's like he had one therapy session where he heard that it was not okay to refer to deliberate affairs as mistakes, that he has to own it as a choice. And then he can't sustain it, right? He can't sustain it. He goes into like how much it hurts him and how hard this is for him. And he has to say goodbye to his children on, on whatever FaceTime. And it's so hard for him, It's harder, it's hardest on him. Yeah. The guy's just, he's sorry he got busted.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, sort of saying, I'm sorry this has impacted on me, not seeing my children. Not, I'm sorry for the children who must be devastated. The wife who's pregnant and is having an extremely stressful time in the final couple of months of her pregnancy. Poor him.
It's
But
all
at
him.
least he's owning his mistakes, so that's okay.
Is he though? I mean that's the thing. I mean, it's all just words. So he apparently he owned his mistakes the last time, and then he felt entitled to go, hook up with, I guess, what is it, Lauryn Goodman again. And I like this. They had their dalliance where she's pregnant with what, their daughter now. I guess it was a child born. I don't know. Um, when he was going in for groin surgery, has that. So, while my dick still works, let's get it on. Yeah.
I do. I have found it interesting as well watching the coverage on this because again, there is this tendency to cast the other woman in the role of, oh, it's someone that's luring your lovely
Right.
faithful man away. And actually, I do firmly believe that if you get involved with anybody that you know is married and know has got children or is in a relationship, then you don't really have any right to get all aggrieved and agitated when it all goes badly wrong because you knew what you were getting yourself into. But
Absolutely.
there is still this tendency to sort of blame the other woman. Ultimately the responsibility lies with the person who has making this decision to go outside their relationship and find someone else. And as has been evidenced here, if it hadn't been her, there's all sorts of other people and popping up.
Yeah, it would be the person in the Manchester bar who saw his junk, or the sex workers he hired. She's not special. And she's doing quite the pick me dance. I mean, I just wanted to get to the whole don't blame the other woman issue, that it comes up a lot in this discourse. And two things can be correct at the same time. She can be an absolutely horrible person, and she is a horrible person. And it can also not be, she didn't make his dick wander. Those two things can be true. I'm not saying she's not responsible for her own choices and being an abhorrent person, and that she isn't tormenting the chump, because I think she is. She absolutely is, and that's sadistic, and that needs to be judged on its own merits. But that in no way detracts from the main character, the driver in all this, which is Kyle Walker, who is essentially inflicting suffering on two women. Not that they're equal. His wife is not equal to the mistress, but he gets off on that misogyny. He gets off on that pick me dance. He gets off on that power trip. That's what this is about. And as long as you stay talking about it like it's a contest between two women, or she's a wily seductress, and all of that still keeps it steeped in this misogynistic narrative that men are prizes, that cheating men are prizes, and we must fight for them. And I wanted to get to her. So my understanding is pregnancy number 2 of Lauryn's, the daughter, I think she had the daughter, that Annie Kilner found out about the second child with Goodman when Goodman sent her a message on Instagram. So that's the pick me dance right there. Is like, you think you're reconciling with your husband? Well, I just gave birth to his kid, and I'm going to tell you via social media. That's sick.
What should she have done? Because you often hear this, don't you, where you get a fair partner saying, should I tell, or friends, should I tell? And
Oh, I think she should tell. But I think, look, if I were her, and not that I can want to imagine ever being Lauryn Goodman, but I would have hired an attorney. I would have gone for child support. I would have, made sure that all parties, including Walker's wife or notified, and I would have done it through that. This seems something gratuitous and mean. And I think the first child, she told her, like, also in some, just going right to her, and told her right after Christmas. I mean, there is seems to be some deliberate cruelty in the way she's messaging this. Um, yeah, and I think there's something really pathetic about the mistress too. She's trying to be like, my child's legitimate. I'm deserving. I had a real relationship. What we had is real. And
I
yeah,
think
you're
as well,
so real.
it highlights what you talk about, what your blog is all about, in that how damaging affairs are, because this is now going to be these two women are going to be entangled forevermore because they have children that are half siblings. So this is something that will go on
Well,
for years and be part of those children's lives.
Annie Kilner does not have to be entangled with Lauren Goodman's children if she divorces Walker. He can have those children on his custodial time, and they can see their half siblings if they want to. It sounds like Walker doesn't want to have anything to do with those kids, which again speaks to his profoundly shitty character. But I mean, I read some little nugget where, last summer, Lauren lashed out at Kyle after the defender unveiled a pair of bespoke football boots bearing the names of each of his children, with Annie, who he secretly married. But there was no mention of his son Cairo. So the mistress is like watching all the coverage of the family and seeing that her child is not, among the legitimate children mentioned when it comes to football boots. And so she's got her nose out of joint. I, I mean that, yeah, in terms of it being insidious and the kids are all related, I guess they are. But if you leave the cheater and you get your own life, then no, Annie Kilner could walk away from this and never have to deal with this torment, never have to deal with this mess, and she should leave it to the man who created it. That would be
Yeah, I
my
suppose
advice.
that's true, but I'm just thinking if it would be me and there were other sort of children in the mix, and you think as your children get older and maybe they want a relationship with those children that they are biologically related to, then there must be so many situations like this. I mean,
Yeah.
this
Well,
saga
that's their
aside,
business.
it's not a unique thing, is it, that children are
No.
brought into the mix?
Well, and the children aren't at fault. It's not their fault they have fuckwits for parents. It's not their fault they were born. And if the kids want to have a relationship, that's their business. They don't have the I don't know. It's their relationship to work out. But I think if you're the chump in this, you can walk away from further abuse. I don't think she's under any obligation to send an olive branch to the mistress just because she bred. I, you know,
It's interesting because I'm sure that this is a saga that is going to keep on giving. The paper's absolutely fascinated by it, but I think what this kind of teaches us is you read all this and your logical response is to say no, walk away from this. As the wife, the treatment has been appalling. But sometimes when it comes to our own relationships, because you're so embroiled in it yourself, you don't do that. You put up with appalling behavior and you forgive and you go back and then you forgive and then it all gets worse. And actually, this is quite a lesson in, standing back and maybe looking at your own life as if you were an observer outside looking in. And what would your advice be to yourself?
yeah. Well, I think a lot of people can go like, well, I don't have the millions of pounds that this football player has, and I'm not, there aren't love children. I'm not that crazy. You can always tell yourself how your story is different. Your pick me dance isn't that pick me dance. Um, yeah, to me, well, there's so many interesting little tidbits of this story, but one of them I think that keeps a chump hooked is this whole narrative that Kyle Walker is doing that, that he's different now. He's sorry, and he just doesn't know who that guy was. That's a real cheater thing. It's like, I just I don't know who that was. I have no idea how this happened. I had no, like, I don't know how babies are made. Like, I don't know how many footballs hit this guy's head, but wow, he just doesn't know. Like, who is that guy? I was somebody who took my vows and I meant them, and you know, yeah, boy, who, that wasn't the real me. Like, yeah, it was the real you. Of course, it was the real you. But for a chump that's desperate to believe that they didn't mean hurt hurt you at that level, then you want to believe that bullshit. You want to believe that wasn't the real you. It is a very seductive narrative. Yeah.
So it's certainly not the first, certainly won't be the last. These stories spring up all the time that makes us realize that the behavior, even down to the she was my best friend, she's my soulmate. It's all very similar, whether there's millions involved or not.
Yeah, so the soulmate thing. I mean, usually they say that about their schmoopies, so your schmoopy soulmates, and I guess that when they're trying to let you think you've won them, then you're the soulmate. Their souls are very shallow. They're very transactional, those souls. They kind of flip from soulmate to soulmate. Were you told anything like this when you went through it? Were you like, you're the sun, the moon, the stars?
Yeah, I was the soulmate. Yeah, I was the
You were the
soulmate.
soulmate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know how he liked his coffee?
Yeah. I didn't know how he liked his coffee. I suspect she had extensive knowledge of how he liked his coffee, and probably delivered it to him in a more gushing manner than I did with my other
Yeah.
responsibilities, the children and the everything
Bad
else.
wife appliance.
I
Bad.
know, exactly. I don't think, Tracy, that we need really a fuckwit of the week this week, because we've already seen some evidence of some fairly appalling behavior that would fit into that particular
I think
category.
Kyle Walker is our fuckwit of the week. For his mistake. No choice. Yes, he is our fuckwit of the week. It goes to you, Kyle Walker, for having
So,
not one, but two love children and a pregnant wife. That wraps another episode of Tell Me How You're Mighty. You want to leave us a mighty story or a fuckwit of the week submission? Check out our new website, tellmehowyourmighty.com. That's yours spelled YOURE. We've got all the episodes, show notes, links to our guests, and you can see the tea room where Sarah and I first met. If you enjoyed this episode, please review the podcast and follow us. Thanks. See you next week.